get started.
Perfect, thank you. I'll call the meeting to order and acknowledge the commissioners on Microsoft Teams. And then I'll ask Antoinette to introduce the items.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners. This morning we have before you 2 agenda items and 3 action items for your consideration and approval. The first item reflects required changes that were made to our current fiscal year's budget to stay in compliance with state budget law. And the second item requests that the Commission adopt the fiscal year 23-24 budget, followed by the adoption of Ordinance 482-T to levy property taxes for fiscal 23-24. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fran to have her present each agenda item for you. Fran, take it away.
All right, good morning, everyone. So the first agenda item requests your approval of adjustments to appropriation levels for the current fiscal 22-23 budget. And as we near the end of the fiscal year, we always review actual and anticipated expenditures relative to appropriations. And we've determined that adjustments are needed in the general fund and airport revenue fund. These changes are detailed in exhibits A and B attached to the agenda item. So for the general fund, we request the following changes: an increase in marine expenses by $1 million to account for potential accruals related to Portland Harbor Superfund environmental liabilities at Marine Terminal 4. An increase to our general aviation expenses by $350,000 to account for anticipated accruals for our Hillsborough Airport stormwater master plan. And finally, an increase to other environmental expenses by $2 million to account for potential accruals related to the Portland Harbor Superfund environmental liabilities. And then in the airport revenue fund, an increase to the system development charges / other line item by $300,000 to account for the termination of the PFC Series 2012A swaps. The total budget for fiscal year 23 after these adjustments is approximately $3.5 billion. And at this time, staff requests approval of the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you, Fran. Do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a motion and second of approval of the recommendation.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Pam, if you could lead us through it.
Commissioners Alexander,
Aye.
Koba,
Aye.
Kupro-Comas,
Aye.
Lamb,
Aye.
Luther,
Aye.
Nimi,
Aye.
Samput, and Strader.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fran, will you continue with the next item, please?
So the second agenda item requests that the commission adopt the fiscal year 23-24 budget and ordinance number 481-T, levying property taxes in the Tri-County Port District. The budget submitted for adoption today does contain changes from what the commission approved in May and what the TSCC reviewed earlier this month. The changes are in the general fund, airport revenue fund, and airport construction fund, and are detailed in exhibits C, D, and E. In total, these adjustments represent a decrease of approximately $27.5 million from the budget approved by commission in May. Here's the summary. So operating revenue decreased approximately $19.4 million with 3 primary drivers. 1, lower intermodal rail volumes at the Terminal 6 container yard. 2, lower potash volumes at Terminal 5. And 3, lower airline reimbursement revenues. We actually applied a budget underspend factor to operating expenses before setting airlines rates and charges for fiscal year 24. So that impacts the reimbursement revenues that we receive since that's a cost recovery model. Operating expenses decreased approximately $5.8 million, primarily due to lower Terminal 6 container yard longshore labor expenses associated with the decrease in intermodal rail volumes. And capitalized labor decreased approximately $700,000 due to revised internal labor and burden rates. And finally, there's a decrease of approximately 8.1 million in transfers between funds and a 12.8 million decrease in contingency due to the aforementioned changes. The total budget for fiscal year 23-24 after these changes is approximately 3.1 billion. And at this time, staff requests approval of the executive director's recommendation to adopt the fiscal 24 budget and enact ordinance 481-T.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I have a question, Antoinette, about the labor capitalization rates. Is there anything to add there about were there different assumptions or just reevaluated? Maybe you could say a little bit more about that.
So I can take that if you're okay. So for the burden rates that end up kind of getting charged to projects, primarily with engineers, since they charge out most of their time to operating capital projects, we don't typically set those burden rates until very late in the budget process. We start the budget process with the prior year burden rate. And then as we get closer to a final budget, then we bring in all of the new budget year data to set final burden rates. And so that always kind of ends up being a pretty big swing one way or the other with capitalized labor.
It's not a different approach or philosophy on labor capitalization.
No, we
Okay.
haven't changed our methodology on burden rates.
Okay. Right.
Thank you. Any other, go ahead, Commissioner Lamb.
I have a question. Maybe you can help me understanding the customer facility charge fund versus customer facility charge bond fund. Is it one is from revenue and the other one's kind of a loan?
So the customer facility charge fund, that's where we bring in all of our customer facility charge revenues that are, on the rental car transactions, the transaction days, there's the fees. We bring that revenue into the customer facility charge fund. And then the customer facility charge bond fund, we actually have transfers from the CFC fund to the CFC bond fund to allow us to pay all of our debt service that we issued for like the quick turnaround facility and the new consolidated rental car facilities. That's specifically for debt service payments, the bond fund is.
Okay. And then one last question is look at the fiscal year 2023, 2024, the beginning balance. We have a nice beginning balance. Where are we with the next year beginning balance? What are we anticipated in the beginning balance for next year budget? Are we in a good positions or are we?
So I think kind of looking at the beginning balance, if we talk about it maybe from the general fund perspective, our beginning balance is $266.4 million for the start of fiscal year 2023-24. And then if you look at kind of the kind of fall down to the bottom line, that contingency line on Exhibit E in your agenda item, that effectively kind of represents that ending working capital balance for fiscal year 24. So, you can see there is a decrease between that beginning balance and where we think we'll end fiscal year 24. That said, there's just a lot that's still up in the air with general fund operations too, as we work to really kind of make the marine terminal, specifically Terminal 6, more financially sustainable by working on rate setting and expense reductions, working on the T2 campus as well. And then also just, I would say the beginning balance, kind of ending balance for the airport revenue fund and a lot of the PDX funds are definitely in a better kind of liquidity position.
Good.
If
Thank
that's
you.
helpful.
Great.
Thanks
you.
for the questions.
Yeah.
That was great. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for motion and second to approve the recommendation.
So move. Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, Pam, would you lead us through the vote, please?
Yes, Commissioners Alexander,
Aye.
Koba,
Aye.
Krupokomis,
Aye.
Lamb,
Aye.
Luther,
Aye.
Nemi, Sampat.
Aye.
Thank you.
Uh,
Sampat
Aye.
and Strader.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Fran, if you would read the ordinance by title only, please.
An ordinance levying taxes to be collected in the fiscal year July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024 upon the taxable property within the boundaries of the Port of Portland.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a motion and second to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Right, Pam, we're ready for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioners Alexander,
Aye.
Koba,
Aye.
Krupokomis,
Aye.
Lamb,
Aye.
Luther,
Aye.
Nemi,
Aye.
Sampat,
Aye.
and Strader.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. See you all in a little bit.
Thank you.
You
Thanks.
have a great day.
Thank you, Antoinette.